That night, I was hanging out with 3 friends, Sarah, Nick, and Mary. We were celebrating Nick's birthday at his place. Now, for context, Nick's house was by a forest and was very isolated from neighbors. Adding to that, it was maybe past midnight, and anything past the Christmas lights of dubious quality that were spread around the yard was basically pitch black all around. Everything was fine for the next 30 minutes or so, apart from the occasional branch cracking. We were having fun, telling stories and rambling on about stupid stuff, and the fear quickly faded away. That was until a deafening shriek came from the darkness of the forest, lasting for about 5 seconds. It sounded like a human voice, but it also didn't sound like a person. We all turned livid, became silent for what seemed like hours. We didn't dare try to look into the forest, except Mary, who had a confidence boost and picked up her phone to use the flashlight. We couldn't help but follow the light as she pointed it at the forest, who seemed unaffected by what was happening. As she scanned the forest, nothing. As we were about to stop looking through, the void stared back at us. Mary shined her light far behind Sarah, and it reflected on a pair of eyes and a white form in the distance. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. We rushed out of the yard without even giving a single thought. Mary and I screamed as we all ran towards the back entrance as fast as possible. Nick immediately grabbed a knife while we locked every door and window. We wanted to call Nick's parents or the police or anyone, but our phones were over by the forest where we left them. Seeing no other choice, Nick put on his shoes and made a run for it. He managed to get his phone, but he heard loud breathing coming from the forest, meaning whatever it was didn't leave. What followed were the scariest 2 hours of my life. Nick got his parents to make their way home, and we gathered in the basement, where there were no windows. We spent most of the time in silence, waiting for something to happen. Half an hour in, we heard another shriek, more distant. Only this time, it was shortly followed by knocks on the door. That couldn't possibly be Nick's parents. Sarah actually started crying, but thankfully it stopped after that. The parents arrived and allowed us to sleep in the basement for safety. They hadn't heard or seen anything, and were pretty sure we just imagined stuff. We hardly slept, and once the morning came, we went out to get our stuff. The phones, keys, wallets were all there. So that left us with 2 possible scenarios. A weird pervert spying on us in an isolated area deep in the forest, or whatever other creepy entity that roams in the forest, deciding to spook us. My friends went to Mexico for a vacation and asked me to house sit and take care of their dogs while they were gone. They pay me $40 a day just to sit around and let the dogs out when they need to go. I am disabled, so that helps a lot. This is a semi-rural area, and houses are roughly a quarter mile apart. Police have to come from town 15 miles away, and response time can be well over an hour. I always take my pistol with me. It's always been quiet when I've stayed there. This time was different. I was in the shower when the dog started barking and growling. They are big, large German shepherds, and one is actually police trained. The owners loan him to county as a drug dog, and if you tell them to be quiet, they obey. This time, they didn't. So I went on high alert. I shut off the water and looked out the window. I didn't see anything, but when I walked out of the bathroom, I saw a shadow go across the bedroom window. I whispered to the dogs to hush, and they did. That's when I heard a man's voice. I couldn't make out everything he was saying, but I distinctly heard 2 words. Come around. So I'm sure there's more than one person. I ran into the living room with my pistol and saw the door handle turn. I yelled, "I have a gun, and I will use it!" I heard feet run away. I was telling Siri to dial 911 and got the county sheriff fast. She said there were 2 cars on another call not far away, but it would take about 20 minutes for them to get here. That's better than the usual hour, but I was pretty shaken. I explained that I was on a farm and would have to go down the road to unlock a cattle gate to let them in, and to please tell the officers that I would be carrying a pistol, and please don't shoot me by mistake because I was not going outside the house without it." The dispatcher said, "Oh no, do not go out there without your gun. I will tell them." The one good thing about living in a red state. She asked if I could see the road, and I can, so she said to wait in the house until I saw blue lights. I hung up and called my friends in Mexico. Their camera footage can be downloaded via app, and they said they could go through it while I waited for the cops. I locked the house and went down the gate when the police arrived. They searched the whole place, including the barn, but didn't find anyone. While they were looking, my friends texted me the camera footage. There was a man on the porch. Unfortunately, the cameras were not angled to get a shot of his face, and it was of course dark. I still think there was more than one creep because of what he said. "Come around." The police were very nice, and they said they had passed a man on a bike on the way, which is strange for this area, especially at night, and went to look for him, but that's all they could do. They took a full report but never caught the creep. My husband came and stayed with me the rest of their trip. One of their neighbors said he found a tent and some gears in the woods a few weeks before, so someone was living back there, maybe a homeless person from town. I have house sit again since then, and it was quiet. They are going away for Christmas, and I will be there again. A lot of people ask me if I would have shot the creep if he had broken in. Yeah, absolutely. I would be sorry if I had to hurt somebody, but if it's them or me, yeah. In about 2007, I had turned 13 and my parents began letting me watch my younger two brothers, ages 10 and 8 at the time. We were allowed to play outside in the backyard but had a long driveway that extended to the front gate facing street that we often used to race each other on toy cars sitting on skateboards, etc. Our street is a cul-de-sac, with our house closer to the dead end so most traffic that came down the street were recognizable. One midweek summer afternoon, we were racing up and down driveway with closed front gate when I noticed a 6-foot-tall white man with black glasses slowly driving by and sticking his head out the window to stare at us with a large grin. My first thought was that he was a relative I didn't recognize because he looked so happy to see us. But then, as he drove back around, my instincts started to freak out because his car was slowing down and I realized I didn't actually know this man. I quickly told my younger brothers to go inside, and we all went through the back door, which I quickly locked. Then we all stood quiet and hid. I peeked out our front large window that was only protected by white curtains, and the man had parked across the street and was standing by his car looking back and forth up and down the street. Don't judge me, but I remember feeling bad for him because he looked lost or like his car just broke down. My middle brother was also peeking the window with me, as we told our youngest to just stay on the opposite side of the house, but to keep the TV off and stay silent. He stood out there for about 5 minutes, just moving around his back seat and trunk, but my sympathy turned into fear when the man started walking across the street towards our house. I quickly went into the doorway and we laid on the floor hoping he couldn't see us at low level through curtains. He rang the doorbell 3 times and tried to look in. I remember feeling frozen but still feeling naive, debating if I should see if he was okay or find out what he wanted. He said, "Hello? Hello?" and looked really frustrated, which kept me on feeling bad for him. He rang the doorbell 3 more times, stood there, and finally just left. He was dressed in a night dress shirt and pants and didn't look homeless or anything, which is why I kept thinking that his car malfunctioned. But as soon as my parents came home that night and we told them what happened, they put locks on the gate and added security cameras. I think what scares me the most as an adult now is how close I was to just opening the door to him and the endless possibilities of what could have happened. Had he been watching our house before and seen 3 young boys? Did he just need car help? This was right before cell phones were everywhere. I never saw this person again, so I doubt it was a relative. And I grew up in a suburb where the entire cul-de-sac is Asian or Hispanic descent, so this man stood out. But it still freaks me out to think about, mostly how excited he smiled when he first saw us.